Welcome to the Small Giants Fishbowl. This topic is coaching to the positive. How does a little pizza restaurant and a reconstructed barn become the workplace destination for teens in its community? Nick Cirillo and Amy Gustafson of Nick's Pizza and Pub challenge you on the power and realities of coaching to the positive and share how eschewing the old school whistle and run for a filled-up atmosphere delivers huge engagement with their team members. Okay, here we go.
This is a great opportunity. I really enjoy doing it. And what Amy and I talked about for this fishbowl, rather than me just be the talking head that shares everything, I thought it would be a great value to the participants to actually have joint perspectives. My perspective from the company level and how I got started and those kind of conversations, or that perspective of how I view things. But then also from Amy's perspective of actually in the operations and on day-to-day with day-to-day different challenges. So many of you know I started Nick's Pizza and Pub about 19 years ago. We have two restaurants, about 350 seats in each restaurant, 9,000 square feet. Very big, very busy places, one of the busiest in the country with really low turnover. Industry average is typically about 150%, and we have less than 25% turnover. So some good things going on, and I'm happy to be here. I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to share the things that have worked for us and how we continue to have high performance in the industry that is challenged with high performance and taking care of their people. So that's my stuff.
Oh, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name's Amy. I've been with Nick's over 10 years or at 10 years, and most of what I do is lead our internal training. I take part in developing our programs. I teach our programs. I facilitate our orientations, and then for Nick's University, I am our lead facilitator as well. So lots of areas and one expertise. So really excited to be here, and thanks, Glenn, for inviting us and including me. So appreciate it. And hi, everyone. I know some of you as well, so good to see you.
Good.
Amy, Nick, thanks for giving us a little bit of background about yourselves. We're going to take about 30 seconds per company to just give a little bit of background of each of you. So I'm going to call out Chris down at the bottom of our screens. You're a new face to us, and so why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself? Can you hear me, Chris?
Yeah. You there?
Yeah, go for it, Chris.
Okay. I'm Chris Manley with Ingenious. We're a web marketing company mostly for small business and nonprofits down in South Carolina. I've been doing this for nearly 10 years now. And, on the Small Giants community, it's with a lot of the core values that our business has had. Really, we got started. And so it's a very good fit, and I'm really excited to learn more and hopefully be able to contribute some, although I'm probably going to be learning more, at least over the next few months.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. Mike, do you want to go ahead and give us a little background on Spectrum Merriment?
I can, sure. Yeah, my name is Mike Gallagher. I'm the director of production for Spectrum Merriment. It's my first time participating in one of these, so I'm looking forward to it. Spectrum Merriment is a manufacturer located in Fargo, North Dakota, and we design and certify and build equipment for transporting patients in helicopters and aircraft. And fast-growing company, and we sell a majority of our product overseas, but we're pleased to be based in quiet Fargo, North Dakota. So, but I focus most of my efforts on training and continuous improvement ideas, and we have a very strong culture of continuous improvement and always looking for new ways to become better. Thanks.
And real quick, Mike, about how many employees?
We have 32 employees, mostly engaged in manufacturing and engineering here in Fargo. We have 3 sales people located around the world as well. So.
Gotcha. And sorry, Chris, about how many employees do you have?
We have 11.
11. Gotcha. Thank you. All right, I'll tell you, let's go across the middle of the Brady Brunch grid here. And Donna, why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about New Dart with us?
We are New Dart. We're the medicating, or we create and develop medicating equipment for animals and the animal control industry. We sell tranquilizers and lots of remote injection equipment. We're a very fast-growing company. We started, about 10 years ago. We probably had about 20, 25 people, if that, and we're now up approaching 55 plus. So very quickly learning processes and realizing that we have to get some new processes in place, and it can be somewhat of a daunting task. So as we went from a very small company to quite quickly a rather larger company, we're spending a lot of time on continuous improvement and those types of things. Again, this is my first meeting like this as well, and I look forward to learning with everybody.
For those of you who might have heard the name New Dart before, Blair Soares is one of our members, and you might have seen his face at GrowCo or another of the Inc. conferences. So Donna is a part of his team, and Blair was kind enough to have Donna participate with us today. So we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, great to see you.
Jim.
Hi. Well, my company is eDoc Service. I'm president and CEO. We offer basic business services to the business community. We are a virtual company whereby everybody in my company works from a home office, or at least they work remotely. We have 15 employees and 40 contractors. We have a number of divisions. Our largest division at present is our eDoc Scribe division, which offers medical transcription. We are doing about 225 to 250,000 lines a week of medical transcription. So we have our 40 contractors and then some employees that are taking care of that division. We also we're launching 3 new services, which we're very excited about. One of them that we're pushing very hard is called eDoc Virtual, where we are actually helping companies move from a brick and mortar environment to a virtual culture. And the thing about a virtual culture is that the principles that I've seen with my visits with the small giants companies are very much in alignment with what has to be in place before a company can start remoting workers. So that part is a very good fit. We just launched that. We have 2 new clients very close to coming on board, and that'll be our start on that. Another new service is called eSign, which is an electronic signature platform. On our medical transcription side, we've developed electronic signatures for the doctors to be able to review and approve their reports online. We've now broken that component out for the business community, and anybody that, any company that requires signatures, whether they be contracts or employee documents or whatever, can utilize this platform. And we have our second phase of that being rolled out next week. That's called eSign. And then the third launch is eDoc Office, which is remote office managers. We've been hitting that pretty hard for 2 years, but that's been a slow go. And we're into a new phase of that, and we're reaching out to new clientele, and I think it's going to go this time. So that's a little bit about eDoc Service, virtual company. We're fairly unique in the marketplace.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate that. And to let you guys know, Jim has a really interesting blog that tackles a lot of topics and references other small giants and some of the things that they're doing. So I'll make sure to share his blog with everyone after our session here. So we have the people. You guys are up.
Okay, so our tagline is engaging life at work. We see there's a big problem in corporate America that 70% of the workforce are not engaged. So we get inspiration from visiting Nick's Pizza, and Tasty Catering was another one. And we believe there's a better way to work. So we're here to learn ourselves how we can create our own company with 100% engagement, and also to help our clients like Comcast and Verizon and Johnson & Johnson, big corporations, take some of the insights that we're learning in here and apply them there. We're a small company, there's 6 of us, and we're excited to be here. Shall we kill them?
Yeah, so I have the pleasure and the pain of being the first remote individual in the company, opening the San Francisco office for We Have the People now. And so that was just 2 weeks ago, I think, that we opened that office there. And so a lot of lessons it looks like that I can learn about what it is to keep the operations going the way they've been going, which is very positive, yeah, in a remote situation.
Fantastic.
Great, guys.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Nick, Amy, why don't you dive in here on coaching to the positive, please?
Yeah, well, we have a bunch of, really the way the structure of our company is set up is really many things are focused around recognizing the positive behaviors that we want to see more of, even in something that might be a negative act or a negative task. We still look to find that positive behavior within that negative. One structure, one piece that we start out with that is at the foundation of coaching to the positive is our feedback system, 3 different types of feedback. So I'm going to hand it off to Amy so she could share that tool.
Yeah, thanks. For our feedback model that we train to all the leaders in our company, we've got 3 different types of feedback that we've identified and broken down. So the first type of feedback would be our feedback loop, which invites 2 parties to share their feedback on one of those 2 parties' performance. So if we've got someone we want to coach in a feedback loop, we're going to share, as a trainer, I'll share something I thought they did really well and something that I think they can do differently next time to enhance performance. And then that same individual will also share their 2 perspectives of their own performance. One thing that they did really well and one thing they need to do next time to enhance their performance. So there's a loop, there's 4 pieces of feedback on one individual, both of which start with positive recognition. And naturally, as you can imagine, human nature forces us to go to what we need to fix first. So it always takes some coercion to slow down and get each of us to go to the positive piece first. So that's our first piece of feedback, and it's what we use most often with new training, new team members, people are new to cross-training or new to the company. We find that it builds relationships and builds some rapport, and it's not super scary for the person receiving. So for our second type of feedback, we've got what we call performance feedback. And that is the trainer's 2 perspectives. So if I'm coaching someone, I'm going to share something that I think they did really well. And I'm also going to share something that I need them to do differently next time to enhance performance. What we have found, and what I have found specifically for my own development, this type of our 3 has the most power because it's both. It's recognizing the positive and also asking for some course correction. So it does a few things, but first let me give you an example because I did experience this just a couple nights ago with a new team member who's training to be a host here at Nick. So she did a great job walking over, bringing our guests to the table, and smiled and was really engaging and all these things. And I noticed that she didn't hand them the menus. She just set the menus down on the table. So my brain instantly went to, oh, she forgot that. But I forced myself to also go, okay, wait, what did I see that she did well? She was smiling, incredibly vibrant. The guests were responding to her just in this 30-second interaction of them sitting down. So as she came back after seating the guest, I made sure to tell her, really love the way that you engaged with that guest, and smile that was so powerful. And she said, thank you so much. And I said, next time, hand them the menus instead of setting them on the table and letting them take them themselves. And she said, oh, thanks for giving me that feedback. I really appreciate it. I said, no problem. So in days of old, I think, and if we go to old school type of trainings, some would call that a compliment sandwich. You know, there's a great with this, but here's what you did wrong. And specific to language, I think that performance feedback serves multiple purposes. First of all, there is no but in the performance feedback. It's always an and. And secondly, it's not just good work for the person receiving the feedback. It's good work for the leaders that are training and tracking performance. So it forces me to, as I catch the things that are being missed so quickly, as each of us probably do in our own fields, we can spot what's wrong from a mile away. Can I spot what's right from a mile away? So it really retrains my thought process to go, hold on, what do I like about this person and what they just did? And so developmentally, it builds a better behavior for me as a trainer to notice positive things. And then ultimately it builds this new habit of also recognizing the positive things as well. So it's really a multi-layered tool. It serves those who receive feedback as well as those who are giving it, and kind of trains a different type of behavior. So,
that's great for performance feedback.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing the story.
Sure. And then the third type of feedback that we train would be direct feedback. So this is your 5 words or less in the moment, really want to high five you or really need you to shift this right now. And 5 words or less. So that's direct feedback. What we know about that type of feedback is it really requires some type of relationship. It can't be someone's first hour with the company and then you give them a 5 word or less course corrective action to take that can really be received in a lot of different ways. So direct feedback for us and our company and our type of environment, there are peak times that things need to shift immediately right now. We've got time sensitive issues, as I'm sure many of us have experienced in different industries. And the 5 word or less is because Nick and I have worked together for 10 years. That works for us. He can tell me something quickly to shift in 5 words or less, and I'm not going to run away in tears because we have a relationship. Typically, I won't run away in tears. So that direct piece of feedback has a place and it has a time, and it's as critical as the other two. It's just more time sensitive and being aware. We also know that each of us has a habit of those 3 types of feedback. What's most comfortable for us? So if direct is more comfortable, then it's a really important piece to train the relational part and building that. So Nick is a huge fan of performance feedback because of, for a lot of different reasons. So I don't know if you want to share your experience.
Yeah, well, for me, it's effective a lot in the beginning, especially in the restaurant scenario. Imagine a Friday night or a Saturday night. In the beginning of that shift, we don't have a lot of time. So my role, what I like to do, and this might work in any company at the beginning of the day, is I want to build the energy of the room. I want to build the energy of the team. So when I come in the beginning, I'm going to walk through the restaurant. I'm going to pass as many people as I can, and I'm going to give them 5 words or less in the beginning of the shift of direct feedback, all celebration. Nice carry, nice way that you're actually moving fast. Love that smile, things like that. Maybe a high five along the way. And by the way, good job at Nick's is like a dirty word, really. Or a dirty phrase. Good job is just not effective. It doesn't help anybody know what specifically they did to do again. What is that behavior? So we really pay attention, all of us really pay attention to something specific in our feedback. And then after that, through that first shift, the people that most of the team I know already, I'm gonna keep building on performance feedback, what they're doing well, and one thing they could do to enhance again, especially on a Friday or Saturday night, we're moving quick. We got a lot of things going on, a lot of interaction. It's pretty intense. It's a good piece of work. I don't know how many of you out there have. I know for me, it was I like that Amy called out that it is training to think this way for ourselves as leaders as well, to get out of our old habits. I know when I first learned, first just running the business, it was hard for me to open my business, be so busy right off the bat. And, I was so focused on solving every problem. It's like from one problem to the next, from one problem to the next. So all I was naming consistently was all the problems. And for me, that felt like support. Well, that doesn't feel like support with everybody you work with because you're just naming all the things they're doing wrong. So I had to really raise my consciousness and be conscious about recognizing the positive behaviors, even when it's something that maybe they didn't do well. I could find, for example, a good example is we have this new kid, Kevin, making pizzas. He's got two trainees, two new people in the heart of house or kitchen making a pizza. And I noticed that Kevin didn't put the sauce on the pizza so well, but Alicia right next to him did the sauce perfect. And they're both at the same level. And what I did was I recognized Alicia's pizza. I was like, wow, that sauce is perfect. I love the way you have it so evenly across that whole pizza. And it's okay to use your fingers like you're finger painting. Way to go. And without saying anything to Kevin noticed that, and I saw him right away take his fingers and even out the sauce. So there's a way to recognize the positive, either side by side with somebody or even if there's something negative in the area. So hopefully that's a good example.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a great example.
Hey,
yeah, I'm sure there's occasions where that's where the performance feedback helps. Is we can recognize somebody, in the way they answer their phone. Way to go! I love that you answered the phone within three rings, and remember the smile, even though you're on the phone and they can't see you. Right? As another example.
So, Nick, let me ask a question here. How does this feedback loop apply in your back office? We talked quite a bit about how you're applying it on the floor on a Friday night, Saturday night, those kind of things. But how is this feedback loop conducted for the folks that aren't necessarily on the floor, but that are running behind the scenes at the business?
Yeah. So if you were paying attention, Glenn, I'll give you a little crap here. So you noticed as soon as Amy finished talking, I recognized something positive in her right away. Thanks for sharing a real story. So it's so much of a habit for me now. And believe me, I wasn't born this way. I wasn't being brought up in an old-fashioned Italian family. It was a big shift. But I've adapted, I've learned, I've become conscious of my behavior. And I'm able to share, just the way I love that you brought one thing I can appreciate, Glenn, is that you actually brought the conversation to something that's more relevant for the rest of the participants here on this call. So, you see how we could do that? We could recognize these positive things in the moment. They're specific. They're just little things along the way. And that's how it makes a difference.
Gotcha. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. It's not really complicated. It is conscious habits, though. We really got to pay attention. And the other part that I think I want to add to before Amy goes is, especially for the leaders in the company, but I think it's my most important role, is to always, as much as possible, tie those behaviors back to words in the value, specific words in our values. Not even as general as way to support our values. And even that's too general. Even that's why our values are numbered. Way to support number 3. I really want to pay attention to, I love that you just said thank you. That supports our value of dignity and respect. I do that. I'm very conscious of that, especially with new team members. It's one way that I I see smiles from them, and then I know that they get that the values are important to us. So that was one other thing I want to mention.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just add to your point, Glenn, at an office level, whether you're working remotely like Jim, I mean, you probably don't work side by side with, any of the 8 in your company. I think it was 8. So email might be a form of communication that you're reliant on. And surprisingly enough, for a 2-restaurant company, we have a boatload of email conversations that go on between, the 20 of us or so on the leadership team. And even in that forum, and I would say especially in that forum, since we all know email can be so sensitive, is to formulate and articulate the thank you for replying so fast, period. And then whatever your interpretation is or whatever your comment is back to the person versus some type of, interaction that doesn't actually recognize the positive in that communication. And I'm not a fan of email, but I do receive a bunch from the person on my left here. And often he'll recognize, thank you so much for bringing up that point at the company level. And that's a really important piece, because without that, and we've had leaders in our company, a partner a while back that didn't do that. Now it's just the stuff, the course correction. And when we're leaving it up to interpretation, then all we're feeling is bad or judged or whatever. So continuing to find the recognition piece, the positive part in every form of performance, just reinforces, retrains, rebuilds behaviors and bad habits that we, as human beings likely have, which is focusing on the negative. So keeps us out of a lot of drama. There's still drama, but it's a lot less. So.
Yeah, we actually have a new operating partner here in Crystal Lake, and just recently, he had a really good email that made sense about a process, a system that we're fixing and improving in the company. And I, privately, I recognized how specific he was in that program and development, and I'd like him to resend that email to the team and integrate what values is supporting with this process. So here I am. I'm not even in the restaurant with our new operating partner, and I've already coached. He's gotten better with integrating values on the floor. And say, wow, okay, now I need to coach him on integrating values, the words of the values, in the emails as well. So.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. I have a follow-up question, but I wanted to give our attendees a chance to ask some questions that are directly related to their practices and how that could be connected to the feedback loop that you've shared with us. So I'm going to open this up. Feel free to chime in and ask Nick and Amy some questions here. So we'll go Jim first, and then weave the people afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. And Nick, great presentation. I have one question and one comment as well. The question is the difference between the feedback loop and performance feedback. It sounds like it's pretty much the same, but if I were to guess, it's just different settings, right? The performance feedback is more on the spot, on the floor, and the feedback loop is more offline, scheduled or unscheduled. I just don't know the difference between the two.
Yeah, so you're right, Jim. They're very similar. The feedback loop is more lengthy because there's 4 observations, the 2 from the person with the performance, and then the 2 from the one giving the feedback. And what that does is that also invites someone to be introspective about their own performance before they hear from me on what I saw. And sometimes those 2 things that we thought they did really well are the same, and that feels really good. Sometimes they're different, and that feels really good to the receiver as well. And then the performance feedback is more just as a trainer, my 2 observations of this individual's performance. So it's a little bit more brief, It requires a little bit less relational ground, and the feedback loop really establishes the ground. It works towards both. So where Nick uses feedback loops a lot is if he, stops in the restaurant and there's new team members working that he hasn't met with, he can do a feedback loop with them because that builds ground while giving constructive criticism, and he does that often. So.
One comment I'll make also, one of the things that we just discovered, even though we've been in business and have been remote for 17 years, we started using a new forum. It's a chat room. And I know Jason Fried spoke at the GrowCo conference, but he developed Campfire. I don't know if he's going to keep it going or what. I know he's focused on Basecamp. But Campfire, it's a chat room, and I have all of our staff, actually I have 4 chat rooms, but our strategic staff, we're focused on one, and I was thinking that might be worthwhile for you to test, with all your people in and out working different operations. And what it does, it eliminates the email. And you can jump in there anytime, like Nick can look in there and say, what's been going on today? And he could see all the chatter going back and forth. And it's, 90% of it is business, but some of it is just casual chat, just like you would have in the office. And the other thing that I just picked up on recently, there's been a lot of encouragement from the other members of the team. Somebody will be working on a project and somebody will jump in and say, you did a great job on that. So the team is encouraging one another with that as well. So just something to think about. It seems to be working with us.
Great.
Good to hear.
Thanks for sharing that.
Paul and Kilton.
You've got a question about training your staff. So in addition to the great example that you're setting, when and how do you train? There's 3 different levels: train your leadership, train new line staff, and the third people is train your suppliers. We've also got customers. Is there any way you can train your customers to start focusing on the positive? So how do you get people to embrace this behavior at various levels?
Good question. Yeah. I know I'm not the team member part and the manager part is pretty easy because it's part of our orientation. It's part of the structure. And we actually do the feedback loop in writing at the end of every shift for the first, till they get their first certification, which is somewhere between 8 and 10 shifts, which I invite any of you to do. If you have a new, I actually did this for a virtual assistant. I said, let's do a 10-minute call at the end for 2 weeks. Let's do a 10-minute call and just do a feedback loop. I want to hear one thing you did well and one thing you could do to enhance. And it gave me an opportunity to see if we were aligned. And the times I couldn't do a call, I asked her to do it in an email. That structure starts a good habit. And it is, honestly, in the beginning, people go right to what they did wrong. So it takes a little bit of behavioral change to get people to really think about what they're doing right throughout their day. And it does have that impact. People will start thinking more about what they're doing right throughout their day. So it's easier for us because it's so embedded in the structure and at the team level and at the leader level. And at the same time, I think with our guests, our customers, it feels like it's contagious. Although we're not as explicit about it with our guests, I notice that we're recognizing, our team is recognizing the positive, recognizing specific things. We train them. We train our care out hosts how to recognize the person. So recognize their Cubs jersey, recognize, their hat, recognize their hairdo, whatever, those specific things. And it's funny because I'll hear guests actually repeat back, oh, and I also like this about you. So that's one thing I think that we've subtly had a positive impact. And then we get guests that walk away saying, wow, something's different about this place. It just feels, they're not really sure what's going on. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an angle of how we do it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Nick. Yeah.
I think we're going to have to brainstorm how it would make sense in our situation.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a way that we Get the ball rolling and then let them watch us.
You know, I have had guests who have had challenges with a meal and had a couple things that they didn't like. You know, this wasn't right and this wasn't right. And if I feel in the moment like it's an okay thing, you know, it's case by case, I'll ask them what was right about what was right about your pizza, and laugh and trust my instincts and get an answer. And so they don't know that that's feedback necessarily. And at the same time, was there anything that you liked about it is a real question. So that is something that I've experimented with. It's case by case, and it's not conscious for them, but it does invite them to say, yeah, you know what, it was cooked perfectly, it was just wrong, you know, or something like that. So to throw that little piece in there, I do try to work with our guests who aren't as positive as I believe they want to be. So
Yeah, cool.
Thanks.
yeah.
Who else?
One of the things that we do when we enter into any group settings, sort of get the positive flow started, is we'll ask everybody, tell me something good. It doesn't have to be related to the situation at all. It doesn't have to be related to the topic. Just sort of gets everybody's mojo back in line and you know, sort of puts a smile on their face. So that's something that we use when we're starting get-togethers and those types of things. Just tell me something good today, or even just walking through the hall. Hey, Kelly, how are you? Tell me something good. You know, and it sort of helps get people back into a good feel, even if you have to give some of the feedback. One of the questions I do have for you, Nick and Amy, is do you find that when you're managing different personalities, that one feedback loop works better over another, or do you constantly interchange them?
It's a great question. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, the feedback loop is a feedback loop. It's just like Amy described. It's a loop. Performance feedback is one-sided, just from that leader or myself, whoever. That's just a one-sided thing. If I feel like I need to build a relationship more with a person, then I'll stick with feedback loops more days in a row or more times in a row. That's I've noticed that sometimes there are those personalities where they're really critical of themselves, and they're hard on themselves. So that those kind of people, I will stay with feedback loops more often, and especially if I see something they missed on, rather than just going right to tell them what they did wrong. What I enjoy about the feedback loop is I ask them, what's one thing you did well in the shift? I saw Sue on table 10 miss on her approach. And I'll ask her, what's one thing you did well, one thing you would enhance if you could do the day over. And she, most of the time, she's the one that says, I did this and this right. And table 10, I'm really not happy with my performance. It's like, wow, I didn't even have to say anything. That's so great. And I find actually retention is higher because they're actually naming those things themselves. So is that helpful? I hope.
Yeah, Don, I would just add that I definitely find sometimes the more relationship there is or more ground there that exists, the more there are times with Nick and I'll go back to us because we have so much time and experience together, is I'll sense the feedback loop coming on and I'll just go, all right, just tell me what do I need to shift, or what'd you see, spit it out, let's go. And so there are personalities like that go, I can handle it, tell me, let's move on. And we have this whole different level of feedback training with 4 different areas to come from that speak to being conscious of, okay, in this moment with this person, what's the right choice, what's going to be the best choice. And that's kind of another category and another class.
Tool,
yeah, another tool that we use.
It's our coaching model.
You're right. There's the what's best for this person, and then what's best for this moment, and sometimes they're not the same. So
yeah, right. That coaching model is very helpful too.
Yeah.
Nick, I'm curious to know if, I know you're really good at working with young people. That's one of your claims to fame, being able to turn these young people into real leaders. Are you seeing a difference in the young people that are coming in today versus 10 years ago?
No, I just did in Chicago, this organization called WorkSpring. I just did a talk on millennials last night. So it's a relevant topic. And I was amazed at the energy behind this topic. It's like, holy cow, people are fired up. And I don't know that it's really that different. I mean, I think every time we have a new generation, the older generation is, what's up with that generation? I'm sure my parents were saying something about my generation at the time, not being more entitled or whatever it is. So I think there's one thing I noticed is, I would say from my generation to now, is the expectation around leadership. I do see that the younger generation has a higher expectation of leaders doing what they say they're going to do, versus the days when I was a kid, my boss told me what to do and I just did it. I didn't, if he told me not to chew gum and he was chewing gum, I just, I listened to him. Nowadays, the younger generation do expect us as leaders to not chew gum if we're going to ask them not to chew gum.
Nick, you had mentioned training yourself to be on the positive side of the feedback loop, and that it wasn't innate, it wasn't what you had been taught. But the word training doesn't have very much specific action about it. And so what were the kind of specific things that you did to change your behavior when it came to getting to acknowledging things from the positive side first and using that to initiate the feedback loop?
Well, one, I had a really strong inner drive to, I really believe in that people want to do their best. So I felt very accountable to tap in to the potential of the people around me. And I noticed that when I recognized the things I appreciated in others, they were more open and they were performing and believing in themselves better. So that internal drive and will, I think, is one part. And then the discipline, it depends what it was, but a lot of times the tool, sometimes I would keep a note with me in my notebook when I carried it, or every one of these tools, in some way, I would have some kind of reminder in my hand or in my pocket, something that some physical way of raising my own consciousness to shift my behavior, even if it was a mantra, every day. Really, I'm one of the benefits of being disciplined. I'm very disciplined when it comes to something I want to change, and I do it every day consistently until it becomes habit.
Fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, folks will send you out a reminder for how you're going to change to think from the positive. So I think I've got some wristbands somewhere for everybody.
Yeah. I think it's 45 days, right? 45 days of doing the same thing over and over becomes habit, something like that.
Yep. So we have time for about one more question here. Is there anybody who wants to call dibs?
Sure.
Mike, yeah. Oh.
Go ahead.
Mike, if we can't get to your question right now, send it to me via email, and I'll make sure we get an answer from Nick, and we'll share that with the entire group. So,
no problem. Thanks.
Chris, go for it.
Okay. Nathan, Amy, I just have really one question. Kind of thinking about incorporating this with our team, and I'm sure y'all have come around. What happens, and how do you mean that person that really struggles with thinking through that positive? They want to jump right to what needs improvement, as opposed to, really making sure they insert that positive before they give feedback.
That does happen. It's usually what happens with new team members is they'll go right to the negative. And usually I'll just say thank you, and I'll just stick with, I need to hear the positive first.
Okay.
The other thing is if what I will do is whoever I'm having frequent interaction with, I'll name for them, hey, just so you know, this is something I'm working on. So if you notice me not doing it, please let me know, so that, point it out and call it out. So now whoever I have the most frequent interaction with is also aware of what I'm practicing and can call me on it. Because if Nick's not there to call me on it, then no one else knows that I'm working on it except me. So that's another thing too I would add, would just be to raise the awareness, call it out in any type of interaction when you can, and get the feedback frequently.
Cool.
Maybe we have time for Mike.
Mike, I think we've got time, so if you want to go for it, go for it.
Good. Hey, thanks, Nick and Amy, for your comments, especially about being self-aware as a leader, that we got to be positive. We focus a lot on continuous improvement, and so we're trying to be positive with these comments in the moment, because as we're tearing down and rebuilding our processes, I mean, it can lead to kind of a negative attitude. And we always try to convey to our employees that it's not them, it's not what they did, it's that we're trying to improve a process so that they can be more successful and we can be more successful as a company. The challenge with that is that this improvement process kind of always is pointing towards improvement, and that connotates that something was bad. So I like your comments about, we need to be real time, we need to be positive, and I'm going to certainly try to do that more often. The question I had for you is, of course, we're required to do like an annual performance evaluation on employees, which is just a terribly awkward thing for me and for the employee, quite honestly. And we've questioned whether that's even a valuable thing. If there's a problem with a behavior or with a situation in the office place, we quite often will just address it on the spot or rather immediately, and resolve it. But do you have any thoughts or suggestions on how you handle something like a annual performance evaluation?
Yes, this one of the benefits of this tool, we call the whole feedback process coaching in the moment, because that's really what it ends up being, is coaching in the moment along the way. So now we're not, the point is to never have surprises when you get to 6-month reviews or 1-year reviews. There should be no surprises. All the coaching, all the feedback has happened along the way. So the 1-year review just becomes a time for visioning, as a visioning process, as Zingerman would say. That's what I found to be most effective. The other point, I love your point about, in your company, your initiative to really be a company that's always improving. That Kaizen thing, I find that's really effective, fun culture to be a part of. The other thing I would challenge you to do is lose the word try. As Yoda would say, there is no try, there's only do. And see how that has a positive impact as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's it for this one. Check out more Fishbowls exclusively for the Small Giants community at smallgiants.org.